But there's a lot of talk about what happens now in the NBA. For the first time in 20 years, LeBron, KD, and Steph are out of the playoffs at or before the first round is over, right? Before the second round starts. 20 years. So we're in a new era. And, so many people want, I think it's a little bit prisoner of the moment, but also he was great in the movie Hustle. And he's an explosive athlete. He makes you think anything is possible athletically for a human being because of what Ann Edwards can do. There are a lot of people think Ann Edwards. I don't. I think it's Luka. Luka has obviously won in Europe. He competed for his home country, did a great job. I think they won the European Championships one year. They're not going to win a gold medal, but they'll be competitive. Be interested to see how he plays this summer. And he's got to get to an NBA Finals pretty soon in order to solidify himself as a league player. But he's got the shoe. He has a gigantic following. He's kind of got Michael Jordan and others believing he's the next one. That would be the guy I think is most likely. Those two, Tatum, unbelievable scorer, unbelievable player, but not as creative and ability to set people up as Luka, and not as explosive as Anthony Edwards. He probably has a lot of offensive Kobe to his game, defensively not so much. Dan Byer, if it was you and I said, who's the next face of the NBA? Who would you say it is?
Yeah, it's Luka. 100%.
Yeah. Why do you think people want to skip over Luka and go to Anthony Edwards? Just the fact that he's not American?
I don't know. I don't know. I never got that sense, to be honest with you. I feel like maybe right now because we're in the peak Anthony Edwards love fest. But honestly, I don't think that Anthony Edwards has gotten as much love as he's deserved up until this point. So maybe it's making up for all of the lost time. But, Luka's, he's got it all. He's got the personality. I think Anthony Edwards has the personality as well. I think that they're in really good hands. And I'll take the L. I thought that Jason Tatum was superstar material. And to be a superstar, there's a lot that has to come with it. And I've even said on this year that on these airwaves that I thought Jason Tatum was a superstar. But I think to your assessment of his play and just on how far reaching of his reach is going to be, it's not going to get to superstar length. It's not going to get to those, spots that I had thought possibly. Okay,
you and I are gigantic sports fans, sports dorks. We host radio shows, right? Jason, you're more of the snapshot of the kind of everyman. You really got to do something for me to pay attention to, and I got to, you're the swing vote, if you will. You could go either way. Where are you on? If you take LeBron out, you take KD out, you take Steph out, who do you want to watch in the NBA? Who would you pay to watch play?
Well, I mean, I'm a Joker guy, but I know that that's not popular. I like watching him play, but I don't think a lot of people have my specific I don't know, what do you call it, sensibilities. Now, we did this game a few weeks back. Okay, I think it was I Feel a Draft. And if you can get that phone, I think it's someone begging to come on and answer this question for Doug. It was I Feel a Draft, and I think with the fourth pick, I was able to get Victor Wembanyama. And Doug's like, oh, man, that's right. You'd almost forgotten about him. And I felt good with that pick. That he's dynamic. He's something we've never seen, and he's got some charisma to him already at 19 or 20. He's got kind of that it. He's been world famous. So that's what I would put my money on.
I honestly didn't even think about Wemby, and Wemby is a complete freak of nature. I think the one thing that makes Luka, and Wemby has some of it. Luka, because he dominates the ball so much, he's going to have Russell Westbrook-like stats. he's got a bit of a flair for the dramatic, and though I don't know if the NBA fan or the common fan views him as a winner, I think basketball fans view him as a winner for his time. Like, they won the European Championship with this tiny country, and then he won a FIBA championship with Real, I believe. So he is viewed as a winner there, and it's not that Wemby's viewed as a losing player, but because his body hasn't developed, I don't think he's actually won anything.
I will say this, that the NBA has actually had two other players, stars, that could be at the level of Luka and Anthony Edwards if things would have gone their way. Health with Zion, there's no doubt about it. If he is healthy, he may be the face of the NBA. But again, he hasn't been. And Ja Morant has also had that ability. But Ja Morant's had his own troubles to deal with. And I think that has made it seem like it's thin on top because they missed in those two spots. And it reminds me of in the NFL at around 2010, 2011, 2012, like 2013. You mentioned the Tom Brady and the Patrick Mahomes. There was this group of quarterbacks that were drafted in that time that just Andrew Luck retired. Russell Wilson's fallen off kind of the map with his play. Cam Newton's out of the league now. Like, there was, for some reason, like in that era of NFL quarterbacks, nobody ended up panning out to continue to carry the torch. And I feel like that's kind of been that way with the NBA. And now you've got some of these young talents where you've got the 10, 15-year age gap that now will end up taking it over. But it's just, you have a hard time envisioning it because we're just so, used to Steph, Durant, and obviously LeBron dominating all of the headlines. And these guys are still pretty new to us as we watch basketball.
They are. I think, we're just in an interesting state, right? Because you had Kobe from Jordan, right? And remember, when Jordan retired, there was people wanted Penny Hardaway. Grant Hill was, end up getting hurt multiple times. Tracy McGrady just couldn't win anything, and all of those guys. I mean, there wasn't. I think Grant stood out the most because Grant was, everything about him felt like a star, other than he wasn't a great shooter. But the presentation, the defense, he had enough flash in his game, but was not a look at me sort of guy. But his body just let him down, right? Tim Duncan was too boring to be a face of a league. They won and were respected, but it wasn't like anybody go, man, I cannot wait to see the Spurs play. Jason Kidd, there was some off-the-court stuff, obviously, and maybe he didn't play in the right markets. He didn't average enough points, but he was a dominant player. And then Allen Iverson, who was just a mess off the court. And the great Iverson, the talent of Iverson was awesome, but there were just too many nights where, that was back before efficiency seemed to matter. And you would see Allen Iverson with 29 points on 32 shots.
I think Iverson, though, like in that comparison, because if we're talking like top of the top here, we're really talking about one or like two players. Really, like you said that, Kobe took the torch from Jordan, then, maybe LeBron takes it from Kobe. But when we think back of that, like 30 years ago even, Charles Barkley was a big-time star in the NBA without any title. And him, like, being even, on the Phoenix Suns at that time made the Suns a popular team, kind of like Iverson did. Or Isaiah Thomas was a star for the Pistons. And we felt like it was full, even though Jordan was maybe on top, or Magic hands it over to Jordan in that realm. I just, right now, in terms of, I don't think we have a top topic aside from Luka. And maybe it's Anthony Edwards, and maybe we're just blessed with Curry, LeBron, and Durant all playing at the same time. But
sure,
I think there was enough star power to go around, but we're talking about that, that super duper star that the NBA is losing.
Yes. And those are, Wemby and Luka are the only two guys. right? And I think Wemby, it's because of the hype before he got here, some of the play, and then just he's just so big and so fluid and whatever, right? And then Luka, he's kind of the whole package, but a lot of that stuff.
Luka's so good in this generation too because of social media. Like you see clips on TikTok or Instagram Reels, and the one comes to mind is the guy yelling from the crowd that he has the same haircut as Luka while Luka's at the free throw line. Yeah. And Luka kind of gives him the maybe. Like that. It's like that stuff it goes a million miles, and he's so perfect for it. And so I just think that he's it. I think Wembanyama's personality is the biggest question that we have how it's going to everything that you said, Doug, of who he is and how he plays and the expectations even in just his first year that he's lived up to. I don't think that there's now any question. It's just a matter of how does his personality translate, if it does.
Yeah, it's fair. Sam, what about you? Where are you on who the next? There's not going to be another LeBron right now. And that's where Luka and Wemby have a chance because they were known when they're 19 years old. That's one of the things about LeBron. But if you were to guess who the face of the league is, who would you guess?
Wemby and Luka are two great names to throw out there. I'll just say this: I don't think anybody, Luka or Wemby, are going to elevate their teams the way LeBron did, taking so many teams to the finals. Like they just haven't even. Obviously Wemby's just getting started, and Luka just hasn't even gotten close to that yet. So LeBron's going to be irreplaceable, but I would definitely say Wembanyama and Doncic are going to be the ones that, yes, I would be like, I want to go see them. If they're sitting out, I'm disappointed. I'm not going to buy a ticket unless they're playing.
It's a great opportunity for Kawhi if he could get healthy and could win this thing just with the other big names. He just, I don't know. Obviously Jalen Brunson's become a gigantic name It is interesting that he won the MVP, but we just can't seem to buy into Joel Embiid, no matter how talented. And he's crazy talented. Joel Embiid might be the most talented guy to ever play basketball. Like, he's over 7 feet tall. He can do legitimate everything. And I know he's been off injured, and he just falls down all the time. I don't know.
When you look at the player, like we look at Jordan's climb. And I don't even know if Kobe had a climb. Maybe he did.
Yeah, he shot air balls the first year in the playoffs.
LeBron did. But that's the point of where I think like Luka is. And I think that's what's going to start with Anthony Edwards. I actually think that Kawhi's time has passed. For his injury history and for actually how long he's been in the league, now it's been a decade. I think that ship has sailed for the
I would agree, but it is an old America loves a comeback. And again, let me just paint a scenario for you here, okay? Let me paint a scenario. Let's say they survive the Dallas Mavericks. Okay? Let's say they survive the Dallas Mavericks. Siri has got a guy's voice in my computer. And if they survive the Dallas Mavericks and he's healthy and they go on a run and they win an NBA championship with the Clippers. The Clippers are anything people say about the Chargers multiplied by 10, and that's the Clippers, right? Historically, the laughingstock of the sport. I agree with you, Dan. I think the injuries and all this kind of build-up, he's kind of where Durant is, maybe even worse along than Durant is because he can't seem to get and stay healthy. But if he could, because there were times this year where they were the best team in the sport, and there were times this year when he was the best player in the sport. I still think it's out there for him, and America does love a comeback. The problem with Kawhi is he has no personality.
I would even argue this, Doug, that Kawhi has been there, done that with that story. He won a country an NBA title. Like, he brought an NBA title to Canada. And maybe it's different of talking with the U.S. and where the Clippers are compared to the Lakers, but I think there's a lot of done that, been there, done that. Because he has accomplished a ton in his career. And we actually kind of feel like we haven't gotten all of Kawhi considering what he's actually done.
I think that's a great point. It's a great point. Like, we haven't ever gotten the full Kawhi, and what is the reason behind that? It's probably the injuries, but also, again, here's the other flaw to how he plays. He's made himself into a scorer, but he's not in this era of basketball, he's incredibly effective, but he's never going to have all the assists. He's never going to have all the ball dominance. That's just not how he plays. And maybe that's a great sign for why Anthony Edwards won't be that guy, because no matter how dynamic a scorer and explosive he is, he's not a guy who creates necessarily for other people. And I think that Luka's ability to pass, as well as the kind of the step back jump shot, as well as the fact that he has like the body of a gigantic. If a bowler took growth hormone and was gigantic, that's what his body would look like, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's what people were. And then the Wemby, he's like a circus freak, but also he's very good at basketball.
Where do you throw a guy like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander into all this? The NBA's third leading scorer.
He's a great player.
Also top 20 in assists.
Story. And they're fun.
Yes, Oklahoma City is a team that's like, they're just, I don't know, they seem like if they were visiting LA, I'd be like, oh, I want to go see them.
Right. They seem to like each other, seem to like playing basketball, seem to respect their coach and like their coach. Like, it's a really non-NBA NBA team. But, again, we're talking about face of the NBA. That's a hard one.
Yeah, I don't see it there.
I don't see it either.
It's funny because Chet Holmgren has more of a, no matter how awful their commercial is with each other, that the, and that personality-wise, for as good as SGA's been, I mean, he's going to be a top 3 MVP voter.
Well, I also think that if we're honest with it, like Durant, the college thing really helped Durant. It helped Chet some. It didn't really help Anthony Edwards a ton because they didn't do anything at Georgia, and it didn't help Shai that much, even though he went to Kentucky. But part of the Durant thing was leading the NBA in scoring, which we know Shai will. And I'm sure him being American, but I honestly think all the points when he scored at Texas made us, and then they had the big 3 early on, and they got to the NBA Finals.